Hello, my lovelies. Welcome back. We are here today, and we're going to talk about The Evil Lives Here episode titled Deadly Fetish. This is season 3, episode 3. And it was originally aired in January 2018. I don't quite remember the exact date. So, I'm going to get right into it. Because my poor face is having a moment. So I've got a little extra TLC on it. But, yeah, I'm just going to get right into it. And today, I just want to say that some of these episodes are getting a little harder to watch. So what I mean, it's not necessarily because of what I'm watching. It's just that the content has become a lot of the same, right? And, I need something on these lips. There's differences in each case, obviously. I mean, they're not going to air the same exact episode every time. New people, whatever. So I get that. The theme in each one here recently has been the same. And it's just very one of those that I find difficult. And I'm hoping that the next one, I haven't checked it out yet, but I'm really hoping it's completely away from these last 2 or 3 episodes that we've done. And I just want to say, if the last couple episodes you couldn't watch because of a trigger, this one's not different. So, yeah, just give you a heads up if you need to check out, leave. I get it, completely understand. I'm not here to mess up anybody's mental health. I thank you for visiting and watching. I hope you can find a video that you can watch and do like. So otherwise, here we go. And we start off by meeting Deborah Davis. And I'm sorry because my sinuses and everything's just really. And she's hoping that by telling her story, she can convince others that when things are at their worst, they can get better. And that nobody should have to live through what she lived through. So her husband, Robert Ben Rhodes, is currently, I guess ex-husband? Yeah, her ex-husband. I was going to say, I thought she divorced him. Her ex-husband is currently serving a life sentence for his crimes. And she tells us that she wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of destroying her life. She was going to rise above what he did to her and make something of herself or do something for herself, and that she wanted him to have the death penalty so she can watch him be executed. So we hear the story on how she met Bob, and she said, her and her friend went to a bar to have some drinks, and sorry, I was trying to decide what I was going to do. And this one guy caught her attention. He was dressed in a pilot's uniform, and she thought that was really cool. And then, of course, he approached her, and they started talking, and she really liked him. So he introduced himself to her as Dusty Rhodes, and she admits that she was impressed by his uniform. And he also really hooked her with all the right words and all the right things. Like, so he was telling her, she was the most beautiful girl in the club or the bar, and he said all the right things, and she fell completely for it. He hooked her, hook, line, and sinker. I mean, he had her. And she said things were really going great. And they began dating. So, so far, so good. 3 months into their relationship, he takes her to his apartment for the first time. So, yeah, they're going well. Apparently going pretty slow as far as... No, I shouldn't say that. I really don't know. But things are going well, but she's never been to his apartment. So she's going to go to his apartment. And she says, he goes to do something, and I start kind of wandering around and snooping. She said, like most people do. And, I got a chuckle out of that because that was me. When I was younger, oh my gosh, I couldn't walk into a place and not completely, excuse me, not completely just search inside, upside down. No thanks. My grandmother used to tease me. She would say that I knew where everything in her house was more than she did. You know, so I get it. I was younger, of course, but when she said, you know, we're wont to snoop, and I just had to chuckle because I was like, yeah, I know that feeling. I've done that a time or two. So, yeah, I thought that was cute. But anyways, back to Deborah. So she says she found his license. And his name's not Dusty Rhodes. It was actually Robert Rhodes. And she asked him about it. So I will say, in the story, she says, I confronted him about it a lot. So, I guess there's something to be said that she just was, what the hell's going on? And that's what she did. So she went up to him and she was like, asked him why he told her a false name. And he's like, well, he said, it adds an air of mystery. What? And then she's like, well, what else did you tell me that's not true? And turns out he's also not an airplane pilot. He just likes wearing uniform because it attracts the girl's attention. He's like, well, it attracted yours. He ain't wrong, but he ain't right either. But anyways, so she's like, well, what do you do? And he's like, well, I'm a truck driver. So already she has found out that he has lied to her about so much. And when she's like, well, why would you not tell me the truth? And he's like, well, I just wanted to see what your reaction would be when you did find out. What? So she's like, you know, she thought it was coy. She kind of thought it was added an air of mystery about him. Excuse me? He's been lying to you for your whole relationship, and it adds an air of mystery. It was coy. So before I even listen to the rest of this episode, it's a huge sign in my book. I'm like, really? Hello? Where's my red flag? Where's my sign? Nobody listens to me, right? I'm just here. So, after they start dating, and for a little while longer, because, you know, what he's done up to this point about bold-faced lying to her and everything is just so cute and mysterious, she starts finding out there's a whole other dang side to this man. And I'm not surprised. I'm sure you're not surprised either. Yeah, we wouldn't be on Evil Lives here if there wasn't a whole other dang side to this guy. So, I want to, at this point, repeat that I had a hard time with this. And I'm trying not to judge. I choose not to judge. I hope I don't judge. So, I hope every episode you see where I'm trying not to judge. But there's so many obvious signs that I have a hard time understanding how you either choose to ignore them or think they're coy or mysterious or whatever. So, for this telling, I'm just going to try to keep my personal feelings out of it. We're just going to talk, because I can't even tell you how many times I rolled my eyes so hard I gave myself a migraine over this episode. So, let's get to the story. And if you don't hear a lot of personal insights or my thoughts, that's why. Because it's just another story with the same old situation and same old lines. So, that's why I'm going to try to be as impartial and just not even give anything to you. So she starts with telling us about one night they're out on a date, and they're sitting in the car, and he says something like, I've got something for you. So she's thinking, because he says, I've got something for you, give me your wrist. So she's excited. She's thinking, oh, he's bought her a bracelet. This is so nice, you know. whatever. And so she gives him her bracelet, and he takes a pair of handcuffs and clips them on her. And she's like, what are you doing? She literally freaks out. She is not happy about being handcuffed or tied up or whatever. And he's like, oh, this will be fun. He says, you'll just stay with me all night. And she is just, no, take these off. I do not like it. There's nothing cute about, I mean, she was very, very upset. And he's like, well, I thought you wanted to spend time with me. This way you'll never leave my side. And she's like, well, I did want to spend time with you, but I don't want to be tied up. So eventually he unlocks her and lets her go, and she gets out of the car. She sees a friend of hers, and I use the word friend pretty loosely here, but she's upset. And she's telling this friend what had happened, and this friend starts laughing, telling her, oh, that's funny. She's like, well, it wasn't funny. She says, no, that's funny. She says, you just overreacted. What? I can't even get this. Okay. So the friend tells her that she is just being oversensitive. So, of course, Deborah starts thinking that she is overreacting. Yes, maybe she is being a little bit too sensitive about it. And she forgave him but she did tell him, I don't like to be tied down. I don't like to be, don't do it again type of thing. And he's very apologetic and, says he'll never do it again, so on and so forth. So she let her friend convince her that she was overreacting. So there's that. So, she said, she really loved this guy. She said every time he looked at her, he made her feel special. She said that she felt like the only woman in the world, and it made her feel good. So she said she put up with a lot of what he did because of that. So on another situation that happened, there was another date that they were going on, and she says, I'm a jeans and t-shirt kind of gal with a pair of boots. She said that was pretty much what I wore all the time. And she said, but this time he wanted to go out on a date, and when she was getting ready in her normal jeans and boots, he said no, and he told her what she had to wear. And she had to wear this halter top and mini skirt. And he took her to this, I can't remember, a club. So she said she's sitting there, and she says when you get there, she said it was kind of odd because they paired them with another couple. And she said, I didn't know this other couple. And she said, I don't think Robert, or Bob, she called him Bob, knew this other couple. So she said they're sitting there, and this girl, the other lady in the couple, starts talking to her. And she's like, do you know what this is? And, of course, Deborah's like, no. She says, this is the first time I'm here. Well, he had taken her to a swingers club. And this lady was proceeding to hit on her. And she was very, very uncomfortable. And she ran out of the club. And, of course, Bob followed her. And she was like, why would you bring me here? This doesn't make any sense to me. Why would you bring me to this club? And he's like, well, this is the next step in our relationship. She says, we need to get you to loosen up and to have fun and relax. And she's like, I'm not comfortable with this. If, an open relationship's what you want, that's not what I want. So eventually he's like, okay, whatever. He apologized, told her he would never do it to her again. And they went home. So I don't know how long it was before he was taking her to another party. And another party she had no idea was a swingers party. I guess this time he didn't dress her or whatever. And she says she got there and, they were having fun. It was more open. Nobody was seating anybody. So she said it wasn't like the last party at all. She said it was a lot more open and relaxed. So she said at one time she had to go to the bathroom. So she got up to go to the bathroom. When she came back, she couldn't find Bob. And she was looking everywhere for him. And finally someone told her that he was in another part of the house or whatever. So she goes and searches for him and finds him in this room, in bed with another woman having sex with her. Of course, she is angry and mad, and she leaves and runs out. And she says he quickly got dressed and followed her out, and he was mad at her. Let me just repeat that. She found him in bed with another woman, and he's mad at her. Okay. So he told her she needed to quit being a baby. That she needed to grow up and to relax and quit being childish. She said it made her feel inadequate, and that maybe she was being a child, but she was very uncomfortable with it all. And she told him that if this is what you need in the relationship, you might need another woman. And then they did break up after that. And you would think, yay, yay. But no. So they reconciled, and it doesn't say how long it took them before they reconciled. And, but they did. It's really not telling us a lot of information on these timelines. Like, I don't know how long from one party to the next that he took her. I don't know how long it was they reconciled. There's a couple other places that just says, and they reconciled, or a little while later. How long is that? I don't know. Let me go finish my eyes. Okay, I'm back. Now, see if I can get some of this redness off these eyes. My goodness. So where was I? So they reconciled. I don't know how long it was or anything. It doesn't state. It just says they eventually reconciled. And she said when they got back together, everything was normal. I don't know what her idea of normal is, but... And they started going back out, doing things together. She said, just they were in a good place. She said things that she wanted to do, he was doing again. And she said it lasted for a while. So when he proposed, she said, they'd been together 2 years at this point. I don't know if that was 2 years total, counting the breakup, or if that was 2 years after the breakup they got back together. I don't know. It didn't quite specify, so I don't know. But she said it had been 2 years, things were going great, so she was happy to say yes. And she said they had a really small wedding. Said just friends and family. And she said she's still worried about his swinging. She didn't know if he was still doing it or not, but she was worried about it. And however, she was still worried about his swinging, but she was convinced that he believed in his vows. And so she was convinced he believed in his vows, and everything would be okay. However, when they got married, I always say however, with just a twinge of regret, I guess, she said Bob's sexual appetites got worse. She said it started about 6 months into their marriage. And 6 months after their wedding, which I guess is the same as into their marriage. But he became more demanding regarding sex. And he started wanting to do some things that involved kink items. So things like he would bring in nipple ring clamps for her to wear and that kind of thing. And she said, she was really she didn't want to do it. But, you know, he was like, oh, you got to try, you got to try. So she did. She said, you know, for him, I tried, you know, it's what he wanted, just to see. She said she didn't like it, said, and he told her, well, you just got to get used to it. But it was that kind of thing. He was starting to bring in more of those kind of things, ropes and handcuffs and kink and whatever. And he wanted her to do them with him. But she did, like I said, she was trying to be the good wife. So she did. She never liked any of it. But he was like, you know, you got to give it a try. Don't be so sensitive. And that kind of thing. Which, you know, I think he told her not to be sensitive. Or that she was too sensitive way too many times for my liking. But, again. So, you know, she just started seeing that things like that had really changed in him. And it was something that was getting worse as the time went by. So she said one year and they showed a picture of this, which, okay. He made him Halloween costumes. And he was so excited about his Halloween costume. He wanted Deborah to be the dominatrix, and he wanted to be her slave. And thankfully the picture only showed the top of him, but he was covered in the leather and chains. And so, I mean, he was all out going for this look, right? And he wanted her to dominate him. Now, it never comes out and says that she did this, but I'm going to remind you there was a picture of him, so she probably did, and that's fine. We've all done costumes or whatever, but she's just like, I guess just things like that were starting to really change for her in him. And then one night she went to bed early, or before Bob. I don't know if it was early, but before Bob. And she said, I slept soundly that night. Which, yeah, apparently. And she woke up, and her hands and feet were tied. She was bound. And, so when she woke up in a panic, right? Didn't know what was going on and how she got tied up and everything. She was trying to get out of it. And she said eventually she realized that he was behind her in bed, sitting up watching her struggle, just enjoying her panic and her fear and whatever. So she eventually got out of the ropes, and she was mad at him, and they were fighting, and he told her again she didn't have a sense of humor. She was just too sensitive, and he did it just to see how she would act when she woke up and found herself bound and how long it would take her to get out. So he made this huge joke out of it, but she didn't think it was quite a joke. And, yeah. She then says that she thought if she prayed enough or loved him enough, he could change. She thought maybe one day he would wake up and realize that she loved him enough that he didn't need the rest. She really didn't understand what he was going through and his needs. And obviously it doesn't happen that way, but she really didn't understand. So there was another time, and that's just the full story of one bad situation from the next. There was one time that apparently Deborah was having some health issues. And she was talking about she had bad headaches. And I'm thinking she might have just had, I won't say just, because I'm currently suffering from migraines myself, trying to get them taken care of. So it's not she just had migraines, because they're very debilitating. But she had headaches and was pretty much just laid up on the couch, not able to do anything, and really just kind of out of it. And he got pleasure out of her being sick. She said he never helped her, and he always required sex, even when she was just so sick she could barely keep her eyes open or move. And she said it was just easier to give in to him than to fight him. That's how bad she felt. But she she said he got pleasure watching watching her be ill and just hurting. And he never said, like I said, that she had migraine. So it was just kind of because she's telling the story where she had a headache that was so bad and so debilitating, and you know how he would come in and he still demanded sex from her and wouldn't help her and whatever. So that's why I thought migraines. Again, I don't know, but he was a jerk, just a pure flat out asshole. And during her sickness, he really just kept taking advantage of her, and basically, you know, yeah. So she said eventually things looked like they were getting better. I'm sorry I keep drinking, but okay, I'm having a hell of a day. Anyways, she said things started to get better. She said doesn't tell me or tell us how long when all this was going on that things started getting better. She just said, you know, things started getting better. He wasn't as demanding with sex and calling her, you know, sensitive or a baby or whatever. However, he was spending more and more time out on the road. So he was taking loads that would put him out a couple weeks at a time. And then he'd come home on the weekend. And she was happy. I mean, he was coming home. He was in a better mood. She wasn't having to deal with his demand for sex and excuse me, his fetishes and things like that. So, hey, all's good, right? Are they? So, she said that when he would come in, excuse me, she would go and clean his truck for him, his big rig for him. And one time she was cleaning and found a pair of women's panties. Wow, Erin, you went deep, dark on that. But, and so she questioned him. And of course, he had an answer for it. He has an answer for everything. But he's like, you know, must have been one of the other guys that uses that rig. You know, it wasn't from me. So she's like, you know, it was plausible. And she had to believe him. So she didn't question it anymore. Didn't think anything else about it. Whatever. She said another time when she was cleaning, this time she said car. I don't know if she meant truck, car, whatever. She found a briefcase. And she's like, oh, I don't know why he would need a briefcase. She said, but you know, I'm not a truck driver. I don't know what there would be a need for briefcases for, right? So he had a briefcase, and and it was locked, so she couldn't open it. She had no idea what was in it, but it was under his car seat. So she took it in, and she's like, "Hey, Bob, what should I do with this?" So he proceeds to tell her that it's I forgot. It's a briefcase for his logbooks and other things that he needs, and he keeps them there handy. So again, she says, you know, not a truck driver. I don't know what kind of logbooks and papers he has, so I believed him. So he took his briefcase and put it back out in the car where he had it. And then he's probably thinking, damn it, woman, quit moving my stuff. But she said he never opened the briefcase. She never saw it open, so she really didn't know what was in it. Never thought anything else about it. Like I said, she was very trusting. She said he told her he needed it for work, and she had no reason to disbelieve him. Okay. So now, out of the blue, he started bringing like weird gifts to her, and it would be like rings and jewelry and stuff that he had. And she's like, you know, it kind of weirded her out, or that he would bring that. And she said because it wasn't in a case. She said didn't come from jewelry or have any price tags or anything on it. She said he'd just come in and hand her this ring. And she asked him, where'd you get it? And he would say things like, well, I found it at the truck stop or something. So she said, you know, yeah, it was kind of weird, but, and she said, I felt, she felt weird wearing it, but she did. She took it, she accepted the gift, and any gifts like that he would bring her. So, she said that she would start noticing too that he would come home with like bumps, bruises, his knuckles would be busted, he'd have scratches all over him, arms, back, front, everything. And she would question him, and he would blow it off. He'd say like, oh, I just got it when I was cleaning or under the truck. So she's like, no, she said, those are not scratches from being under your rig working on it. And he's like, well, she said, I got in a fight at a bar and whatever. She's like, she just didn't believe him, but he blew it off, told her everything was fine, he was fine, and he told her to let it go. So then, to top it off, because you know this isn't going to get easier or get better. So to top it off, he come home one night in one of his moods, as she called it. And she said you could just see the anger radiating off him. I didn't like that color lipstick. So you could just feel the anger radiating off of him. And he wanted sex, but he was so angry that she actually said no. You're not allowed to tell this man no. I don't know what she was thinking. So they started physically fighting, and he sexually assaulted her. He didn't give her a choice. She was going to have sex with him. So she said, I just quit fighting him. I let him do whatever he wanted to do. She said afterwards he rolled over and went right to sleep, and she cried all night. But then in the next morning she got up, she decided she was leaving him. I don't know. Okay. I told you I'm not going to say anything. So she was determined to leave that morning, and he confronted her, and he's like, where do you think you're going? She's like, I'm done, I'm over, whatever. And he wasn't going to have it, so he abused her. He started hitting her, kicking her, whatever. She said that, she said in the relationship, she had told him if he ever hit her or abused her, she was gone. Said there would never be anything else. I get that. I've done the same. But she said, so when he's hitting her and he's kicking her, when he was finally done, she said it was like a look, just a whole look come over. And she said she looked up at him, and it was like he finally realized it was her, you know, and she said she could see the fog clear from his face or his mind or his eyes or whatever. And she asked him, she says, are you done? And he was like, yes. And she's like, so am I, and left. She said when she packed her bag and got out of there, she could hear him as she left the house destroying everything. He was breaking things. He was throwing things. She said he threw a first-class temper tantrum. So they were married 1.5 years when she left him. And so she left him in September of that year, which I don't really know what year it was. Yeah, I do. Late 80s, early 90s. Late 80s, 89. When she left him, because the 1st of April 1990, she received a phone call telling her he was arrested. So the sheriff's office called to tell her that he had been arrested for rape and kidnapping. That was April 1st, 1990. And she reads the arrest warrant. So apparently Bob was pulled over by this officer, Officer Miller. And when he approached the truck, he noticed there was something kind of hinky, something a little off. And so he got Bob out of the truck. He was talking to her, but when he looked back in the truck, he found a woman in the back tied up, and bound, and she was crying. And then when she saw him, she started you know, screaming, don't hurt me, whatever. And he told her he was a cop. He had put Bob in the backseat of his car in chains, and apparently some story that I didn't quite get. He almost got out and escaped. But yeah, he was arrested, and she says she just couldn't believe he would do something to someone like that. So she thought that was the end of it. She's divorced. She's found out he's arrested. Why wouldn't it have been the end of it? I mean, really. But it wasn't. The FBI contacts her. And they had finally kind of put together a timeline of what Bob had been doing and things that he's been up to. And so he had been picking up men and women, torturing them, raping them, killing them. And the FBI told her he had been doing this for 18 years. Which would have been right in the middle of their time they'd been married. So it started in the late 70s. The internet. Now, I start my search on Wiki, as usual. And again, I want to say, in the description box will be links to everything that I have looked at or used. So Bob was born November 22nd, 1945, and was dubbed the truck stop killer. He was convicted of first-degree murder in 1994, and he was suspected of torturing, assaulting, and killing more than 50 women. It doesn't say men here, but 50 women between 1975 and 1990. When caught, Bob admitted to doing this for 15 years. Rhodes preyed on hitchhikers and truck stop sex workers during his active years. It stated that the above, Patricia and Doug that I mentioned, were married and they were hitchhiking. And he picked them up. He immediately killed Doug and dumped him and kept Patricia for over a week, torturing her before dumping her. He dumped Doug in Texas. He kept Patricia for a week and dumped her in Utah. 18-year-old Shanna Holtz was grabbed but escaped Bob. She went to the police, and Rhodes was detained, but she refused to press charges, and he was let go. It was later learned that she was fearful of Bob after spending 2 weeks in his truck being tortured. Regina Walters and her boyfriend, Ricky Jones, were runaways from Texas that Bob picked up. Ricky is not listed above as one of the 3 murders, but it was said that he did the same with Ricky as he did with Doug. So he killed him immediately and then dumped him, while keeping Regina for a long time. There's no time given, but they literally said that there was pictures of Regina and her hair changed and the hair growth and bruising, and so they could see the phases of the bruises. He kept her for a while. She was found in Mississippi. It's not stated where Walters was found. I don't think he ever was found, because it says he was charged in absentia with Walters' murder, which means they never had the body. So when he was pulled over by the state trooper in Arizona, that's the Miller that kind of broke everything out, they found Kathleen Vine in his truck, tied up and handcuffed. So Rhodes was arrested and charged with her kidnapping and sexual assault, and that's when the police were able to start tying some of these other sexual assaults, kidnappings, disappearances, and murders to him. So Rhodes is serving a life sentence without parole in the maximum security Menard Correctional Center in Illinois. Now, it's funny because I never found where he was actually from, and I kind of think he might have been from Illinois, but he was a truck driver. He was all around everywhere. It never stated specifically born and raised in Illinois. I think he traveled a lot. So on another web page this web page is allthat'sinteresting.com. It had an interesting article on Robert, so, you know, hey, held up to his name. He was born in Iowa, and he was in trouble with the law from an early age. And he also joined the Marines. His father was arrested for molesting a 12-year-old girl, but he committed suicide before his trial. So you got to wonder if his perversions and his way of thinking came from his father. So, because during the time his father was arrested and killed, Robert was also in trouble in the Marines for some robberies and such, and was dishonorably discharged. So Robert held and tortured 14-year-old Regina Walters. This is the one I was talking about. He held for a very long time. He cut off all her hair, even took pictures. He had pictures of all his victims. So he took pictures of different stages of Regina. That's why they were saying they held her for a long time. And the picture of what she looked like when she was born, she had this beautiful It was in the 80s, so she had all this hair, and he completely like shaved her hair completely off. But he took it a step further, and he called Regina's father to tell her what he was doing to her. And she actually wasn't found till 5 months after he was in custody. Once in custody, Robert wouldn't talk, which we know because the FBI wanted Deborah to help. So he wouldn't talk to Deborah. He wouldn't talk to anybody. But when she ended the visits, he eventually started confessing to the murders that he committed. So I don't know if he just confessed to the 3 because it's the only 3 he was charged with. So many officers and prosecutors called Robert pure evil and said you can feel it radiating off him. And Deborah made a comment like that in the video where she said the day that it all broke down and he sexually assaulted her, beat her, and she actually left, she said when he come home that day, you could feel the evil just radiating off him. So law enforcement cross-referenced Bob's trekking logs with records of young women who went missing or were murdered over a 15-year span when he was active. And that's why they believe he was responsible for 50 or more murders during that time. He had equipped his truck with a dungeon-like compartment that was between the seats. He had handcuffs on the ceilings where he would handcuff them and torture them. And his murder kit, which was his briefcase. This is the briefcase the wife found, never opened. It was his murder kit. And it contained chains, cords, whips, leashes, as well as dildos, clips, pins, and fish hooks that he used on the genitalia of his victims. One of the women that got away said that Robert had a sign on his dashboard that said, quote, cash, grass, or ass. No rides for free. No one rides for free, end quote. So she said she had a consensual sexual encounter with him because she was hitchhiking. She had to pay her fee, you know. She never saw him again. So she was one of the lucky few, and they said that there probably were not many that had a relation or an encounter with Bob and survived. But one of the things I never found when I was researching was any mention of Deborah at all. And that's fine. I let her go. I hope she's moved on. I hope she's had a happy life. I hope she is able to get some closure on this. I didn't search her down anymore. Everything I was looking at, Robert never mentioned his wife, but they were divorced when he was arrested, so that might have been why. But I just let it go. So, this is the disturbing story of Robert Rhodes. I struggle, again, I just want to say I struggled. There's just nothing I can say. However, I do want to say that I do not blame the victims. So at any point, I hope you never think that I'm victim blaming. I don't think that even if they had noticed the signs, if they had seen it and done something, that it would have actually prevented this from happening. However, what I think, it could have prevented her from going through this hell. But I don't blame her. I really don't ever victim blame. I just want to state that in case anybody thinks that I'm an idiot and does so. I don't. This is clearly Robert. He is clearly a bad apple, and I don't think anything Deborah could have done would have made much of a change. It wouldn't have. So, thank you for watching. This was a hard one for me to get through. I had all kinds of issues, and I apologize. I don't know what's going on, so thank you for being my friend and sticking around and coming back. So, stay safe. I'd love to hear from you, so don't forget to comment, send me PMs, whatever. Drop an email. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to share. And I hope you hit that subscribe button, guys. And until next time, I gotta get the button. Goodbye.